One of the most common complaints that I hear from people is that my hips are tight. And I don't know if this resonates with you. You might be doing yoga for a long time, and do you feel that even if you do a lot of yoga that your hips still feel tight? Well, this little sequence and this little tutorial is going to be your ticket to getting a little bit more education and a little bit more understanding on how to actually make a lasting change in the sensation or experience of tightness in your hips. Something that I like to say is a lunge a day keeps the doctor away. And I don't know if that's 100% true, but I'm going to show you a bunch of different lunges that will get your hips feeling brand new immediately. And then my doctor's prescription would be to do them daily, do them as much as you can. Start to invite lunging and these different lunge variations into your daily life, and you'll feel the difference. I'm Bree Johnson of Heart and Bones Yoga, and as always, if you love these videos, subscribe. And did you also know that if you press that little notification button, there's a little bell right by that subscribe button, that if you press it, you'll also get notified every time I post a new video, which is virtually every week. Are you ready for some lunges? I am. Let's go do it. One of the key components to a really good lunge is thinking about what your femur bone, your thigh bone, is doing in relationship to your pelvis. Now, we're going to go through some different movements, and you're going to see how the essential lunge is the same. But when we put these little different tweaks on the lunge, you're going to notice a big difference in sensation and hopefully feel a big difference afterwards. We're going to start with what I like to call just a good old-fashioned lunge. And we're going to call this the low lunge. And we're going to start, and we're going to bring one foot forward. I'm going to bring my left foot forward here. And you can bring your hands on either side of your foot. Now, if you like to use blocks, you're welcome to have blocks on either side of your hands or underneath your hands, and then stretch your back leg back. You can also put something underneath your knee for a little bit of extra support if that feels better for your body. And this is the lunge that I like to start on because it feels the best in the sense that it's the easiest. We're not doing anything too different. Most of us have all experienced a lunge like this before. So all you're going to do is just breathe and let your body get used to the experience of this lunge. So we can take a big deep breath in, big deep breath out, big deep breath in and out. And as you're here, as you're breathing, start to turn your attention into your leg that's extended. So this is my right leg, my right thigh is lengthened. I'm just noticing the sensation. How do my hips feel? How does that right thigh, right hip flexors, how do they all feel? Softening your jaw. Good. Let's do another big deep breath here. And then out. Let's switch sides. And you can switch however it works for you. I like to just kind of go for my hands and knees for this. Bringing my right foot forward now, left foot back. Hands onto the blocks if you're using the blocks. Using support underneath your knee is needed. And same thing, just like we did on the other side. We're just here, but there's not a lot of different cues to think about or specific ways of moving your body in this lunge. We're just simply in this lunge inviting ourselves to get used to the shape of a lunge today, right? Our bodies are different every day. How does the lunge feel today in your body? Big deep breath in, big deep breath out, big deep breath in and out. Again, softening your jaw. Thinking about keeping the back of your neck nice and long. Beautiful. Let's come onto the hands and knees now. And using the hands and knees as a transition point, just do a little shift from side to side and notice how even just doing one little lunge feels in your hips. Now let's add on to that lunge. What we're going to do is take the left foot forward here again. But this time, we're going to keep the hands on either side of your foot, tucking your back toes underneath. Now, feel for a moment. Bring your attention into your pelvis and feel your pelvis feeling heavy. So you can feel the weight of your pelvis dropping down toward the floor. As you let your pelvis be heavy, tuck your back toes underneath, and then just lift your back knee a little bit off the ground. Not a lot, just a little. Try not to lift your hips up like I just did, right? So what you want to do, heavy pelvis, keep your pelvis low, and it's just the knee. So it's actually quite a small little movement on the surface, but on the inside, if you're doing it well, you're going to notice, wow, this looks a lot like the lunge we just did, but adding that heaviness, not letting the pelvis lift, but the only thing that's lifting now is my back leg. Good, keep breathing here. If this is new to you, it's absolutely going to feel intense. And then exhale and release. Nice, switch legs. And then now that right foot is forward, left foot back. Hands on either side of your foot. Same thing, let's come back into awareness of that nice heavy pelvis. Let your hips drop. Keep your pelvis heavy, tuck your back toes, and just lift your knee off the ground ever so slightly. Find that balance between not letting the hips lift, keep your hips heavy and low, and just lift your leg. As we were talking about at the very beginning when I said, think about the relationship between your femur and your pelvis. Right now, we're not letting our pelvis move. We're just letting our femur bone, our thigh bone lift, bringing a deeper sense of hip extension, getting deeper into the less surface muscles, getting into the deeper ones like the psoas muscles, iliacus. Keep breathing. And then exhale, release. Beautiful. Come onto the hands and knees. You're also welcome to come into downward facing dog if that feels good for you. But we'll pause. Notice how the hips feel after that. And then let's take the left foot forward again into another lunge. So this is a lunge extravaganza. I like to think of this. Now, the next variation of the lunge is that we're going to move our pelvis from side to side. So think about your pelvis running along a very small, short track, and it's just going side to side. It will be a small movement. We're trying to move the pelvis laterally. I'll talk us through it. Hands on either side of the foot again. Your back knee stays down. And then start to bring your attention into your pelvis and just shift it over to the right, shift it over to the left, right and left. And when I say shift, when I say move, it's a small movement. Don't expect that your pelvis is going to swing all the way out to one side or the other. In fact, if this is a newer movement for you, your brain might go, what? Because you may not be used to having your pelvis move laterally in a lunge. So play with that. Even if it feels like nothing is really moving, that's fine. Look down at that front knee. Make sure your front knee is not really moving. Your back leg isn't really moving. This is all in the pelvis itself. Okay, keep shifting a couple more times. And then release and switch. Bring your right foot forward, left leg back. Hands on either side of your foot again, and support your back knee if you need to. But we're doing a lot of lunging, and if your back knee by now goes, I need more love and support, give your knee that support through a bolster, blanket, anything cushy and soft. Now thinking about your pelvis running sideways, back and forth on a little track, pelvis to the right, pelvis to the left. Try not to let your knee and shin move to the right and left. Isolate the movement as best you can into your pelvis. Notice if your jaw is clenching while you do this. That's really common when we work on lunges and stuff in the hips. So if so, soften and relax your jaw. Okay, and then release that. You can come into down dog. You can go into the hands and knees. Wiggle and observe. Notice how your pelvis feels here. Take a few more moments. And then let's continue. All right, so now we'll take our left foot forward. As you got your left foot forward, now we're going to come into what I call a high lunge or a high-low lunge because we're not going all the way up. But this time, we'll tuck our back toes underneath. Actively stretch your heel back behind you and breathe. So this is a lot more active. We want our legs straight, that back leg nice and long. And then while you do this, pay attention to what's going on in your front leg. Gently press your front foot down toward the floor. At the same time, plug your thigh bone back in towards your body. You're pulling gently your thigh bone back, waking up the muscles around your hip joints. Good. And then exhale, release, and switch. Switch and come in and out of these as in a way that really works best for your own body. Right foot forward, left foot back, and then back leg stretch nice and long. And then pressing down through your front foot, especially through that front heel, and really feeling that gentle moving backwards. Your thigh bone gently reaches back to the wall behind you at the same time as pressing your front foot down, creating immediate stability and strength, which is what we are looking for in this leg, on this side of this lunge. Meanwhile, you're stretching your back leg nice and active. And then release, bring your knee down, come onto the hands and knees, do a little wiggle or downward dog or anything else that feels good, because we've got some more lunging to happen. Okay, now come up onto both knees. So you're up on both knees, and again, feel free to use any sort of soft cushion to support your knees if needed. And then I'm going to talk you through a transition that I find really effective and helpful. Once you're on your knees like so, try not to use your hands. I've got a wall here and there's a temptation to use the wall for support, but every movement counts, which means even the transitions getting into our lunges count. So shift the weight a little bit over to your right without your hands as best you can. See if you can bring that left foot forward. Now we're in this higher lunge, meaning our torso's not leaning forward. We're in this high lunge, right foot or left foot forward. And for the first start of this, try to have your pelvis over top of your knee, creating a vertical line as best you can through your thigh. You can see how both knees are bent at about a 90-degree angle. And then take your hands on your pelvis and find the bones of your pelvis. And specifically your ASISs, those two hip points that are kind of jut out at the front of the pelvis. Now see if you can feel where they are in space, those two hip points. If you like, one of my favorite cues is thinking about those two hip points like headlights of a car. How can you adjust the way that you're here by having those headlights pointing forward as best you can? They don't have to be 100% forward, but forward. And then keep your pelvis just as it is. We're going to travel the pelvis forward, not down, not up. Try to keep your headlights pointing forward. And then all of a sudden you start to move just a little bit, and you could see how, wait a second, if I went a little further, my pelvis is going to start to tilt down. Those headlights are going to point down. So this is a small little movement. All we're going to do, keep those headlights pointing forward. Slide your pelvis forward until if you went any further, you'd feel your pelvis start to tilt down. Now pause there. Let's connect back into what this front leg is doing. Root the front heel down. Gently plug your front femur bone, thigh bone in towards your body. And immediately we try to create a sense of resistance because you've got the stability, this pulling inwards of your front leg. Meanwhile, your pelvis is moving and inching its way a little bit more forward without letting the pelvis tilt down. So it's small. This is so small, this little lunge. But if we've got all those pieces together, you're going to feel some new sensations if this is a new lunge for you. It's one of my favorite variations. Okay, switch. Can you switch back without your hands? And then to the other side. Bringing that right foot forward with control, exploring that movement. And then your both legs again in a roughly 90-degree angle. Find your headlights of the car. Are they pointing forward? Do make whatever little adjustments as you can. And then keep your pelvis just like that and let's start to travel it forward. So if you can imagine your pelvis, as it slides forward, it's moving away from your femur bone, away from this back leg. And that's what we talked about at the beginning, that what's my pelvis doing? What's my femur bone doing? And we want to move the femur bone in this one without moving the pelvis, which will give you those deeper stretches. So now continue, press that right heel down, plug that right leg back and towards your body, and then continue. You got to maybe actively lift those hip points up a little bit while you move your pelvis forward and create resistance. For me, I feel like it's a little bit of this action. So to me, it's a sound effect where I'm like schlooping in. I call it schlooping. So we want to schloop everything in and keep that schloop and then move forward. Nice. Small little movement, but yet big, big results. Soften your shoulders, back of your neck, just another 2 breaths or so. And then release, come back, bring your knees, and then feel free to go into a downward facing dog, go onto your hands and knees and take a few moments and feel how those hips feel in your body. Okay, last lunge variation. We've got potentially lots of different lunges we can do, but these are my top favorite ones that make a nice little series. Now let's bring that left foot forward again, and I like to add more dynamic movements. What we were just doing were more static stretches. Now let's do that same small mini lunge, nice psoas friendly lunge, but more dynamically, which means we're moving back and forth, okay? So pelvis, same alignment applies here. Pelvis in a more neutral position, headlights of a car forward, plugging in your femur, press down through that heel and slide your pelvis forward. Now you can allow your pelvis to slide a little bit forward and feel those headlights pointing down a bit, but keep that sense of schloop, keep that resistance. And then when you feel like you can't go anymore unless you just kind of flopped into the lunge like so, right? You want to come back and then slowly create that resistance. Pelvis slides forward, femur bone pulls back, foot presses down, front foot, and then come back out. Now, if you're doing this along with me and this isn't making a lot of sense, feel free to look here at the video and see that I'm actually not moving all that far. But I've got that resistance. I'm plugging my femur in. I'm creating a lot of strength and stability in the movement. So back and forth a few times. Good. Let's go 2 more times. Keep that resistance, keep that schlooping feeling. One more time. And then coming back up. Last side, right foot forward. Try to see how that transition works. I had to use that wall again for a little moment of balance. And then let's press the front foot down. Femur bone, thigh bone back, neutral pelvis, schloop, right? Create resistance. Resist a little bit your pelvis moving forward by your back leg, right? Move it forward. Lift the sit bones up just a little bit. Ribs down. And then when you feel like, okay, that's about it, watch me, I'm not going that far. If I let it all flop out, look how far I can go. We don't care about this range. This is too passive. What we're looking for is a really active movement. So I'm going to go back into my smaller range of movement. And when I can't really feel like I can go any further unless I just let it all flop out, then I'm going to schloop it back up and then come back forward. You can really think, another way to think about this movement is this back femur bone like an anchor, and it's holding you, and it's at that angle, and your pelvis is moving forward, and in between we get all those hip flexor muscles, quadriceps, getting that lovely stretch, and then with resistance, contraction coming back in, sliding forward, small movements, and then back 2 more times. Good, last time. Whew, so nice. You can do all of these lunges as a series like we just did. You can do these lunges one at a time, but I recommend for a really sustainable yoga practice, for lasting healthy hips, We need diversity. We need to do different types of lunges to get a breadth of movement. Because as you noticed, a lot of those lunges look the same, but when we did those little tweaks, you can see how they're a little bit different and accessed different, deeper muscles. So that's great. Now, if that made sense, if you loved it, leave a comment below. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because I've found when I teach different people, different classes, and especially my own body, it's a huge difference for people. It's kind of a game changer. And don't forget, press that subscribe button, press that little bell notification so that you can keep getting these awesome videos. Let me know what you want to see more of, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.